how happy are you with the standards of broadcast journalism or investigative journalism right now in the world?
I'm not happy with broadcast journalism at all. And I go back to this a lot. I mean, when I started in broadcast journalism, there wasn't 24-hour news, and there wasn't this huge array of satellite channels that we have now. You know, if you run a channel, a 24-hour news channel, you know what your priority is? Your priority is to fill that black hole that is stretching away for the next 24 hours and the 24 hours after that, for weeks and years to come. And instead of allowing you to exercise good news judgment, all you want to do is fill that black hole.
But you can fill it with quality content.
Well, that's very difficult because you don't have the money to. I mean, budgets are being cut left, right, and centre. You work for the US government. We're living in a credit crunch now. You know how budgets are being squeezed. Cheap television looks like cheap television. Unfortunately, we have a lot of cheap television around the world because people can't afford it. They have this 24-hour black hole to fill. So a duck walking across the road, you happen to have a camera on it, yeah, put it on. In the old days, we did and run it at 10 or 15 minutes, depending on how quickly the duck can cross from one side to the other. Look, we used to have news judgments. Things used to fight for their place in news bulletins because they were important, they were compelling, and you felt they needed to be put out now. 24-hour news has taken away that compulsion, taken away those news judgments. The priority now is just fill that time. Just fill it with whatever you've got. And if you haven't got enough, just run it to the greater length. To me, that's the problem with broadcast news. And the other thing is that, and that's part of the same problem, is that we cover events now. President goes to Capitol Hill, makes a speech, you cover it. Yeah? Foreign visitor arrives, you cover it. That's not news. News is about people. News is supposed to be about what people do and how they live, what their aspirations are, how they suffer, what they want. You know, the news is what should connect one section of society with another. It makes you into a functioning society as opposed to a dysfunctioning one. If you know what other people are doing, there's a chance you'll care about it. My problem in the Arab world is why I think to a great extent it's dysfunctional is because it doesn't have a free media. So you're not connecting the different parts and the different sections of society with each other. They neither know about the other sections nor care. And that's the shame. If you have a free media, then you connect those different parts of society together and you have a much, much more functioning society. You have a community of people, not just people who happen to live in a particular area through geographical accident. You have people who share the same things, who want to find out about each other's problems, each other's solutions. They want to build a community and just sit and live in one place.
Just a correction, I don't work for the US government, I work for the US taxpayer. So there's a little difference between that. But
is it better paid?
I was making more money in Pakistan, to be honest with you.
Good heavens. Don't let that get out.
Yeah, I'll cut that out.
Okay.
But my bosses are watching right now, so. But how important do you think it is for a journalist to be impartial? Sometimes nationalism kicks in when we talk about India and Pakistan, what happened in the Mumbai blast, the kind of reporting we saw in India and in Pakistan, and then what happened with the lawyers' movement in Pakistan. What should a journalist keep in mind once that kind of event unfolds?
I think a journalist has to keep in mind that skepticism, healthy skepticism, for whatever they're told, not to accept handouts of information, to test everything they're told and hear, and particularly in interviews, to take the opposite point of view from the person they're talking to. There's no point saying, oh, Mr. President, is there anything you'd like to tell the nation? That isn't an interview. That's a handout. You need to put the president through his paces. He's a public servant, just like the man who delivers your mail in the morning. He's a public servant. Or the man who drives the bus that takes your children to school, or whatever. They're public servants. And insofar as their responsibilities stretch into your life, you're quite entitled to question them about their ability to fulfill those functions and the effectiveness with which they do. And that's the process that we're engaged in here in interviewing. It's about accountability. That's what journalists are for. That's why I went into journalism. That's why I stay in journalism, is to introduce a measure of accountability into society. It goes back to what I said before. It's a court of public opinion. In many cases, this is the only court these people will ever appear in. So you might as well ask the questions that society wants to know the answers to.
Well, right now, my audience would love to know if there ever will be a Pakistan debates.
I can't answer that question. Will we bring the Doha debates to Pakistan? We may well do. We may well do. There's plenty to talk about. We may well go to India too. We may well go to lots of countries. But yeah, look, we're not a travelling roadshow. We don't have unlimited funds, but we will be travelling a little more. Yeah, absolutely.
And if you compare Doha debates done in Doha and now in DC, how's the comparison?
Well, it was pretty rowdy in DC by comparison. That's a good thing in a way. People hold their views very passionately. People, get excited about important issues. I mean, we were talking here in DC. The motion was this House believes it's time for the U.S. administration to get tough on Israel. Bear in mind, this is a sensitive subject in this town. The U.S.'s relationship with Israel is a very sensitive subject in the United States.
And rowdy meaning booing you?
No, I think there was a little hissing at some of the speakers. I don't think I got booed because I didn't express any opinions. I merely asked some questions. But I asked them not to. The whole idea is these are civilized debates. This is a debate where you are quite entitled to score points by debating, by arguing, but not by hissing or name calling or behavior like that. We try to run a civilized debate, and if we manage it in the Gulf, we should be able to manage it in the United States. But people hold their views very passionately on this particular subject, America's relationship with Israel, and we had a surprising vote. I think it was 63% in favor of the motion to 37% against, feeling that it's time for the US administration to get tough on Israel. It's a surprising result in Washington. I was surprised. I was surprised at the strength of feeling, and I think it signals a certain shift in US attitudes to Israel.
Will you be coming back to DC?
If I'm allowed back into DC, I'll certainly come back to DC, yeah.
Well, we thank you so much for your time.
It's a great pleasure. Thank you very much.
Pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you. Thanks.